All right, now we're going to look at some complex numbers. So when we have complex numbers here, we are going to make sure that we are going to put things in a plus bi form. So if we see a negative under the radical, that means that we're going to pull out a -1, and that -1 is going to be replaced with I, okay? And so now I have to simplify 324, and I'm not sure if that's a perfect square. Let me see, 324 square root, yes it is. So the square root of -1 is going to be I, and the square root of 324 is 18. So it would just be 18. Now watch on these next ones, because a lot of you, when you saw a subtraction sign, you were actually multiplying. So notice that this right here is a subtraction, and you are subtracting 7 and you are subtracting -I. So I'm going to write that out. 7 minus 7I minus 7 plus I, because minus a negative makes it positive. Then I'm going to collect like terms. 7 minus 7 is 0. And then I'm going to look at -7I and positive 1I makes -6I. Now, technically, you don't have to write the 0, but in a plus bi form, that would be how I would write it. Now, if I'm multiplying, I'm going to FOIL. 1 times 1 is 1. The outer gives me -8I. The inner gives me positive 8I. And the last gives me -64I squared. And we never leave an I squared in our answer. -8I and positive 8I cancel each other out. Remember, this I squared changes the sign of that number. So it becomes 1 plus 64, because recall that I squared is equal to -1. And so now my final answer is just 1 plus 64, or 65. I would recommend in this next problem that you actually write out what that means, because if you don't, the tendency is to square the first term, square the last term, and then think you're done. So I'm going to FOIL. 2 times 2 is 4. The outer is -6I. The inner is -6I. And the last is positive 9I squared. So I am going to make this, I'm going to cross this out. Positive 9I squared is the same as -9. And so now I can take 4 minus 9 and get -5. And -6I and -6I make -12I. I'm not sure that we did these equations in our chapter with function notation. I'm going to go ahead and do these real quickly, but I can't recall doing these in our semester. And if we didn't in our semester, I'm not sure. But if we, I don't think I put these on your final, but with that being said, let's just go ahead and do 62 and 63 real quickly. So first we need to find the slope. And remember, the slope is the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. So if I have this as x1, y1, and this is x2, y2, I can find the slope by taking 8 minus 5 over -32 minus a -20, which makes that a plus. So I get 8 minus 5, that's 3, and -32 plus 20 is -12, which simplifies to -1/4. So once I do that, now I'm going to simply use one of the answers, and I would probably choose, or one of the points, I would probably choose the point that has the smaller numbers. I would choose that point. This one I don't need anymore. So I'm going to use this formula, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And I'm going to replace my slope is negative 1/4. The y stays there. I am going to subtract the y from that point, which is 5, put parentheses, x minus a negative 20, which becomes plus. Then I have to distribute. And so y minus 5 is negative 1/4 x, and negative 1/4 times positive 20 is negative 5. And then last but not least, I am going to move over this 5, and so I get y equals negative 1/4 x plus 0. Now, if I have a perpendicular line to the given equation, x minus 3y, the first thing that I want to do for this problem right here is to solve for y, because I need to know what the slope of that line is. So if I have x minus 3y is equal to 3, I'm going to subtract x, so negative 3y is equal to negative x plus 3, and then I'm going to divide by negative 3, and so I get y equals positive x over 3, which is 1/3, same as 1/3 x, and then minus 1. And so really why I did that is because I want to know the slope, which is 1/3. And since it's a perpendicular line, I want the slope to be a negative reciprocal. So I'm going to have to use the new slope is going to be negative 3, because the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3, and the opposite of positive is negative. So now I'm going to use this slope and this point, and I'm going to use the same formula. So y minus y sub 1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x sub 1. And I'm going to replace these values from the point and the slope that I found. So y minus a negative 5 becomes plus. The slope of negative 3, parentheses, x minus a negative 5, which also becomes plus. And so then I distribute so that I get negative 3x minus 15, and then I'm going to subtract 5, and so my answer is y equals negative 3x minus 20. Now they said to express it in function notation, so all you would do is change that y to an f of x. And so that's going to stop for number 63, and I will make another video for our quadratics.